So today we talk about Tantra Yoga, or rather about Tantra in Bhakti Yoga. It's actually a more correct title for this class. So there we have three words: Yoga, Bhakti and Tantra. Yoga, everybody knows, it means union, to become in union with everything, to become in union with the divine in yourself. This is yoga. The Bhakti Yoga is then one branch of yoga, one aspect of yoga, where we try to exercise love. And love is union. Union is love. So this is one way to find the union, that is yoga. So then in Bhakti we try to love everybody. And that is not always so easy. So it is then easier to love the divine, which is anyhow in everybody. And if we can love the divine and exercise the love for the divine, then also it becomes easier to see it in everything and everybody and fulfill the objectives of bhakti. So then we find many practices of devotion, of ritual, of chanting, these things which are usually associated with religion. But it only becomes religion when some group is claiming it. Then it becomes religion, and then it can also create problems. It can also create many good things, but it can also create many problems. While in bhakti it is actually a very personal thing. Whichever works for you, whichever form of the divine you like, whether you like an elephant-headed god, or maybe for you the divine is just represented by a light, because it is the light, or whichever form or non-form you prefer, it does not matter in bhakti. It is personal, and it may also happen in a small group or in a family, but still remain very free and flexible as you feel it. And then only it can work. Because if your heart is not in it, then it's no use at all to do any of these things. So, and then the third word is Tantra, and this is really mostly what today is about. And it's a little bit an advanced class, I would say, for people who are new to the story of yoga. Today they may be hearing a little more than they are wanting to hear. But I can't help it. It's part of the story. Tantra is about the magical aspect of the universe. It is an understanding and a practice that works with the magical aspect of the universe, of that which is beyond the senses, of that which is beyond, in a way, also our understanding. It is the science that works with energy, and energy comes in so many different forms. Energy is emotion, but not only, let's say, conscious emotion, but also very much subconscious emotion, which is the driving force of our conscious emotions and thoughts and actions and desires and all these things. So Tantra also very much relates to desire, certainly, and to the power, the energy that is needed to fulfill the desire. And in that way, Tantra is related to Shakti, the mother goddess, while yoga, in its essence, is related to Shiva, the pure consciousness. I have said it in many classes, actually in yoga there is nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is stop trying to do anything. And when you can do that, then you will be in pure consciousness. Then you will be with Shiva, and then you will experience the peace and bliss and love and union, etc., associated with it. all else in a way that we do in yoga is Tantra, because all else that we do is only about changing the energy. And we only want to change the energy because it will allow us to finally stop doing anything and let everything go and achieve the self, cosmic consciousness, or whichever you want to call it. So in that way you can say that pranayam is a part of Tantra Yoga, because with pranayam quite definitely we want to change the more gross pranic energy, the energy of the breath. Asana is a kind of tantric practice, because there also in our body we are trying to rearrange things, to let go of certain tensions, to become more at ease with our body. The main reason for doing all these asanas is so that we are able to sit like this for a long time, so that we are able to meditate. That is the main reason. Many other advantages are there, like health and feeling good, whatever. But the original and main purpose is this, to be able to sit. So that the energy of the body is at rest, so that we can drop everything and drop the body and forget about it and find the self, find pure consciousness. So those are, let's say, the less magical parts of Tantra, which are usually not even associated with Tantra. Tantra in the West is mostly associated with sex. I hope that is not the reason why there are many people in the room, because that is really a Western point of view. Sexual energy is also an energy. So sure, there is a branch of Tantra which also works with sexual energy. Tries there to also harmonize it, find a way to make it spiritual, to bring it in a certain balance. So that exists, but it is actually a very small branch of Tantra. Definitely not the main branch. It is only because in the West we are so much involved with sex that for us Tantra means some kind of practice in that way, but it is not. The main practices that we find in Tantra are mantra, yantra, puja and kundalini. Those are the four main branches, but there are many, many more, smaller ones. One of which is then related to sex. So, a little bit just explaining what is Tantra. And you don't hear a lot about it. Not many teachers are talking about it. And it's interesting to understand why. Because there are actually some really good reasons not to talk about it. But fortunately there are also good reasons to talk about it, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. But there are some good reasons not to talk about it. And one of those is, of course, that Tantra is very mysterious, so it's very difficult to talk about it. Like most men will feel women are mysterious and unpredictable. In that way also Tantra is mysterious and unpredictable. And for most of us this is not like something we can handle. Like when you are told by the teacher, okay, you do like this, some ritual. Then we always want to know why. But when we ask why, they will say, well, there's no need to know. Just do it, you will see it works. And so that for us is hard. I've had many little conflicts with my various teachers in that way, that I really wanted to know, I really wanted to understand, and they were not so very interested to explain, like a woman also is not very interested to explain. Now it's true, there's a very similar situation you get, and in some way it is also because this is really in Tantra how it is. Even if a certain practice is supposed to bring a certain result, this is not 100% clear. Let alone why. It is unpredictable. So this is one reason. The self is very easy to understand. You can explain to anybody in 5 minutes what the self is, and they will say, yeah, there's something like that. They can sense that in themselves. But Tantra is very complicated, because Tantra deals with the spiritual world. And that is a world beyond our senses. So especially for most people who have no particular talent in that way, who have no direct experience of that world, it remains like a story. So people have a hard time believing in it. Other reasons are also there. Like one can say that tantric practices, I forgot to pass this through. Tantric practices, like giving prasad, is a tantric practice, can also be used in a bad way. But I don't really agree that that is the reason why we shouldn't talk about it. Because yes, there are some tantric practices, some ways of working with energy which can be misused, generally called black tantra, used for selfish reasons. But those are very different from the practices that are actually belonging to white tantra. It's really like also a very Western distinction, which can only be used for good things. So those things at least one can teach. So that is not really a reason. Another reason is that most tantric practices are advanced practices. Like for example, Harish Johari, I have met him when I was 20 years old, and he was very definitely a tantric. But he didn't teach me all that much tantra. Because first I had to learn many other things. If you cannot concentrate, if you cannot use a mantra without other thoughts coming in between, then what's the use in tantra? In tantra you have to be able to focus. So that is another reason. You need a particular experience in order to really work with it. But as I said, there are also good reasons to talk about it. Because this is a reality which affects you. And if you have no idea about it, then you are actually slowing down your progress by not knowing. So, what is this understanding of Tantra? What is this spiritual world that I'm talking about? Materialists, they believe that what they see is the only thing that exists, right? And spiritual people believe there is something more. They believe there is something called the spirit, which is beyond the body. Most spiritual people, they believe in reincarnation, right? But reincarnation means that when a person dies, he is actually not dying. He is leaving the body and going somewhere else. That means that there is a spirit, a soul, or whichever way you want to name it, leaving this body, and then after a while finding a new body. In between, there is this spirit. There is this being, this entity, this energy, whichever one, name you pick, it is there. That is what spiritual people actually believe, even though many spiritual people, they believe in reincarnation, but they don't believe in spirits. I understand, because it's a little frightening to believe in spirits. And we have no connection, no experience, so it's hard. And here is actually another reason why we don't talk so much about it, is because we don't want to make people afraid. Yoga teachers are not really aiming at making people afraid. They're aiming at making people less afraid. So that's why we don't tell stories about spirits. But they are there. The spiritual world is really a world of the spirits. And it is there, like you could say, in another dimension, another plane of existence, but it is still linked to us, and it influences us, and it can be helpful to us, and it can create problems for us. And so when we are doing a spiritual practice, we can greatly benefit from some simple things, from some simple understanding about how to do it. So those things I like to talk about. But first I like to explain a little bit more about this spiritual world, how it works. The first thing to understand is that our mind is not really our mind. I mean, of course, if you see yourself as the self, then your mind is not your mind, right? That is in yoga a very basic understanding. This is not my mind talking, so I just might not get involved, and after a while the talking in your head stops. This is a very basic understanding. But when I say our mind is not our mind, then I also mean that our mind is part of a common mind field. Western New Age people like to call it the astral plane or something. Doesn't matter. There is a kind of mind field. Thoughts, feelings are vibrations of energy. And they vibrate in the field. And in that way we are all influencing each other. And when I say we are all influencing each other, I don't just mean that the people now sitting in this room are kind of influencing each other in their thoughts and emotions. That is also true. But there are also many other people to whom you have a close connection, maybe, a heart connection, which may be at the moment in Africa or New Zealand, wherever, and still they will influence you. So this mind field is a very strange thing. And we can only use symbols to kind of describe it, because to describe the reality of it is quite impossible. It's been more than 25 years, let's say, since I've been involved with Tantra, and I can still say I understand very little about it. So it's hard to explain. But the way I can most easily understand this part is through the idea of the nadis. Nadis are channels of energy. People may have heard about them in relationship to the chakras inside the body, and have learned that there are 72,000 nadis, channels of energy in our body, which are like nerves or meridians or more subtle channels, more subtle energy channels. And it is these subtle energy channels which actually connect you to the common mind field. And it is through these subtle channels that you can also be connected to another person who is 10,000 miles away. That is how it works. So, but when we then talk about the spirits, then we can say that they also live in this common mind field. So it is there that they can influence us. And in that way, whatever you are thinking or feeling is not your own. You have a say in it, sure. You have power over it, sure. Of what happens here in your own mind, you have a power. But you also have other influences, energies which influence you. And some of these energies may be, let's say, more happy, more balanced, more peaceful. And some of these energies may be more imbalanced, less happy, less peaceful. Like people. Actually, many of them are just like us. They're just people who left their body. But it's not that they have changed so much. So some are like very, very nice. Some may be a little bit naughty or angry or upset. And there the first and maybe the most important part or most important thing to remember from this class is that like attracts like. If you are feeling unhappy, you are vibrating in this common mind field a certain energy, producing a certain song, like a certain sound. And others will come and join your song. And in that way, the beings who are in a spirit form are more influential than the people who are in a physical form. Because those who are in a physical form also have a conscious mind. So they are much more, let's say, consciously deciding what they want to do and not do, and what they want to think and not think, and what they want to feel and not feel. So they are not so easily swayed by outside influences. But beings that live in a spiritual body don't have brain. They don't have a conscious mind. They live in a certain state that we can call more subconscious. It's not unconscious, but subconscious. And in that way they are more emotional in nature. We have here our rational brain in front, which allows us to kind of get a hold of our emotion and work with them. In the spiritual world, this is less the case. Spiritual beings are more vibrating on an emotional level. So when the attraction comes of your emotion, they very easily get attracted. It's not like they're saying in the morning, oh, today let's look at somebody, try to find somebody who is very angry because I'm also feeling angry and so we can be angry together. It's not like that. It just happens. They're feeling angry, you're feeling angry, and so, And then both energies will stimulate each other. And this just happens all the time, and since we are conscious, then after a time of being angry, we can say, well, it's no use being angry, and I should not have expected this or that. All these things that I teach in the class on anger, you can use, and you can get out of it. And then that being which may be having, enjoying your anger together with you, may say, well, he's done with it, let's look for somebody else. And you're rid of it, quite clearly. But if your anger, for example, or your love, because it works both ways, is chronical, is taking a long time, is lasting for days, for weeks, for months, then that connection with that being will become more strong. And there may then come a time where you are actually done with it, where you feel, now I want to let go, and it's hard to let go, because some other energy has become so attached to your emotion that it won't let go. And it will all the time, not consciously understand, but through its nature, will all the time again bring up the stories that support your anger. Say, oh, you remember he did this. So in that way, the influence can become quite strong. But as I said, it is both positive and negative, like with other people. The influence in that way is quite similar. And when it is positive, then it can bring great advancement in yoga, in spiritual understanding, and in meditation. So, the trick in Tantra Yoga is quite simply to a little bit know how to have good energy around you. And with energy then I also mean spiritual beings. How to bring that around you. And it's a little scary to think about it like that. I understand. I've taken a long time to kind of really accept that part of reality. It's so much more easy to believe that I am in charge fully of what I feel and think and so on. Only through experiences that I've had with my teachers, I have had to accept that this is part of it. And by accepting it, I have been able to start working with it and start enjoying it and get the benefit of it. As long as you are there in full doubt and thinking, what am I doing? Then it will not work so well. So, but it takes a while to get there. And so Tantra is really about creating the right energy around you for whichever you want to do. Because there is Tantra and there is Tantra Yoga. Meaning that this understanding you can use for the purpose of yoga, for gaining peace and love and whatever, stability. But it can also be used for, different way. To be a good teacher or be a good businessman or, make a nice garden or make good art, music, whichever. It's not any different actually. This understanding can be used in any way. It does not have any morality attached to it. The morality is your problem, what you do with it. Your understanding of Dharma. And in that way it is nothing different from any other tool. Like a knife can be used to cut the bread or hurt somebody. It doesn't depend on the knife. Tantra is the same. So this is a little bit as an introduction to the subject. So let's have a little closer look at these beings, which is hard because, as I say, it's very mysterious. But still some knowledge exists there about different kinds that are there. And of course the kind that is most close to us are those like us, only they are not in a physical body at the moment, but they are still coming out of a human body and are probably going to take on another human body within some time. Now the first thing there to understand is that time in that plane is running very differently. A person who, let's say, left his body 5 years ago may feel like this is only 5 days in his feeling, in his understanding. While in truth, or from our plane, it is 5 years. That also explains why actually there are quite a lot of them around. If everybody would reincarnate, like let's say 2 days after being gone or dying, then there wouldn't be so many around. No? But it's actually the opposite. They may feel like it's only 5 days, but actually they've been hanging around for 5 years. And that's not even a very long time. That's not even an average, I would say. I think the average is a bit longer. And some may stay around for 100 years or 200 years. It all depends on their attachment to their former life. And those who are very, very attached to their former life have also a name. We call them ghosts. So not all spirits are ghosts. Ghosts are very rare. Like on TV, they are often there in the films. But in reality, they are rare. They are people maybe who were dying accidentally, so they had no preparation whatsoever. It just happened like this. And so they have a difficulty to detach from their relatives, from their children, from their husband or wife, from their life. Because they didn't have time to think about it. Just boom, happened. Or maybe if they were killed, it's also possible, because then they may have a grudge, and that may keep them around more. But as I said, they are very rare. They are called preta in Sanskrit. What is most important for us are the pitra, which are the ancestors. So they are your parents, grandparents, uncles, whatever, your family who have passed away. They are important because through the bloodline there is a strong connection. Actually, most spiritual beings, they don't even know you exist. They don't, let's say, see you. But your ancestor spirits, they will see you. They will have a connection with you. They will easily feel how you feel. And generally, they are very positive as an influence. Their family. They may a little bit maybe disagree. They may be a little bit like trying to bring you in a certain direction, just like any mother and father will try to bring the child in a certain direction. But that attitude is generally very positive. So that is the first, let's say, kind. A second kind is what is called the kul. This is the, let's say, cultural branch to which you belong. Beings of the same culture. And when I say culture, in the old days, that was very clear. In the old days, you were either this or that, there's no doubt about it. These days, it's very hard to say. Because we have like multiculture mixed all together in one culture today. Especially in the West. So it's a little hard to say, where is that root now? But still the root is there. Some connection is there with some beings that may be outside of your family, but who may, let's say, be your teachers, or your students, or a little of both. Friends also, quite simply. People with whom you have a connection which goes maybe beyond the family, but still is there. It's like when you meet somebody for the first time, it seems, but immediately you have a strong connection. Immediately you feel that you know this person and this person knows you, and you can very easily talk without stepping on each other's toes. You can very easily go into very private stuff. This is the kind of person that belongs to your root. You may feel you don't know them, but actually you are knowing them from past lives. So this kind of connection is there. Apart from that, many beings also exist which are removed from the human nature more, either because they have never been, let's say, in a human body, but rather in an animal body, or because they have never actually come to the physical world. This also exists. And the ones that are more related, I would say, to the animal world are not so very important to us, although it's not a very clear distinction because, well, they may have been human also at some point. No? So it's not such a clear distinction. But those who are actually not really belonging to the physical world have no real interest in the physical world. They are very interesting to us spiritually because they can be very helpful. And there again many different kinds exist. Like yakshas are those who are mostly associated with places of worship, with temples and shrines and caves and churches or whatever. They are often also involved with healing. Again, others exist, for example, involved with healing among the Nags. So in that way, many different kinds are there. Some I would say very helpful, some may be also a little bit naughty, but generally speaking, they are very interesting and very helpful. Some are very associated with what is then called the Devdas. And to call the Devdas spirits is a little bit like hurting the story, because Devdas in India, they are the gods. Like Ganesha is one of the Devdas, and Hanuman, all these Indian gods, 330 million different Indian gods, they are called Devdas. In a way, they are also spiritual beings or spirits, but of, let's say, a different kind again, because they are very close to the ultimate divine. They have a form which is almost like not a form. Their form is only a purpose. Their form is only a way to make things happen. Like Ganesha will help set aside the intellect, or Hanuman will give you courage, or Lakshmi will bring you good fortune, or some things like that. All these aspects of the divine have also a certain kind of manifestation in the energy field. It is not like an elephant-headed man is walking around in the clouds somewhere. This is not at all the view of the Vedas. The view of the Vedas is that the unmanifested divine, the pure self, which is at the same time also the pure energy, when it manifests, it brings out different forms. Like it also brings out all these different forms that we can see, it also brings out different forms that are more subtle. And the most subtle forms, the most closely related to the original, are those Devdas. And those Devdas, they have, like they have on earth, they also have in the spiritual world worshippers, believers, spiritual beings which are maybe then again more like us, but who have devoted their lives in the spiritual world towards these manifestations of the ultimate divine, and who are helping them, let's say, in doing their job. Because each of these beings, each of these Devdas, kinda you can say, has a job. Like Vishnu's job is to help preserve the universe, and for that comes also in many, many different forms. But each of these also then has armies, you can say, of spiritual beings which help in this work. So when then you, let's say, pray to Shiva to help you in your meditation, well, maybe Shiva is listening and taking care of it personally, but maybe not. But somebody, some being who is linked to Shiva, who is associated with Shiva, with this energy which is Shiva, because Shiva again is not like a yogi sitting on a mountain and all that, that is just our picture. Some being associated with this energy of withdrawal, which is meditation, will help you. So this is how Tantra works. And the difference there between Bhakti and Tantra is only a matter of, let's say, technique. In Bhakti, all that is needed is love. If you can pray to Shiva, if you can say Om Namah Shivaya with true love, then you don't need Tantra. And there is no need for it. Tantra just helps to pass on the message. Tantra just is like a language, a communication. with which then you can make this message go through. And in that way you can say it is also a very simple thing. Nothing special. But for most people, it comes down to doing certain things without really knowing why or how it works, but just out of some belief, and then after a while, because they feel, yeah, it does work. No? You are always, I talked about that in the last class, able to experiment with yourself and with your yoga and with your meditation. So if you believe what I am saying, and you already have like a regular meditation practice, then the only thing you have to do is from now on, maybe for a couple of weeks, do a few things before your meditation and see if it makes a difference. If it makes no difference, then drop it. But it will make a difference. So what then are these things that you can do? The first thing that is so powerful is to light a lamp, to light a candle. Preferably one made of natural material. So either a beeswax candle or an oil lamp. That is best. But anyhow, the lamp is something which is like a lamp. Also in the spiritual world, it will attract good energy. It's a very simple thing. So whenever you meditate, just light a lamp. That's one of the first things. A second thing is water. Very simply, to put some water around you will attract the good energies. And one of the most powerful things is incense or essential oil smell. As I said, spiritual beings are more emotional, less conscious. That means that if you give them something like that, they kind of have no choice but to respond to it. Like, let's say if you are angry and somebody puts on some really funny music, then you might say, oh, no, I don't want to hear this music because I want to stay angry. I have the right to be angry, so don't put in any funny music on, right? But the spirit can't do that. The spirit who is angry and hears some nice music kind of has to go like, it's not having this much conscious control. So if you light incense, you will attract spirits that are more of a gentle nature, helpful nature. And those who are maybe a little bit less happy, let's say, they will either become more happy and more calm and more quiet because of the smell, or they will go. That is also possible. They will just go. But they cannot stay near you and remain really like unhappy and negative if you are burning incense. So incense is very, very powerful. And is also precisely like one of the typical reasons why I still want to give this class. Because in the West we tend to think that all these things don't matter, right? We tend to want to learn to meditate, but then when we hear all this mumbo jumbo coming from India, we think, this is not needed. Huh? My wife doesn't like incense, so I'll not burn incense. It's just like for show. But it's not. It's very, very essential. It's very, very helpful if you meditate. And if your wife doesn't like incense, well, maybe essential oil will do it. That's also good. Some sandalwood oil or something you can put a little bit around, or whichever way with a candle. You can spread it, or you find a way. And one other example here is that you should never face south when meditating. It's very important. Because the spiritual world also has its own directions. This is to do with the magnetic field of the earth and the influence it has on the energy. So if you are doing meditation facing in south, then you will more attract unhappy energy. So you can meditate facing east, this is most common, or west, or east in the morning and west in the evening, and even north is also good. It's quite ascetic energy there, but not south. And again, this is one of those things, you can read this in many books. Many of the traditional books on yoga and meditation will tell you, don't, meditate facing south. But then here in the West we will think, for me it's easier to sit like this. In my room it works like this, so I want to sit in this direction. But it's actually very unhealthy to do it. Mentally, emotionally, even physically. It is really unhealthy to do it. So